This is a nut and bolt question, but first I'd like to preface it by saying that I haven't used psychedelics in 20 years, and haven't used marijuana in 7, and have been considering return to the use of psychedelics. When I stopped, the last experience which I had, it wasn't a terrifying experience and it wasn't a bad trip. It presented similar insights that I have heard you mention and speak of. But there were times in which my psychedelic use left me rather shaken and terrified, dealing with fear of death and crossing over the line, though I have to say that my very first psychedelic experience was one which contained a death and rebirth experience, so I don't know why after that, but that's the nature of fear, I suppose. So the question is, it's a nut and bolt question, it's how does one proceed with the use of psychedelics after a long absence from it, and not make the mistakes and not run into the walls that I occasionally ran into, or deal with them, get around them, so forth and so on.
Well, I think the best protection against unpleasant experiences on psychedelics is to do it with care and attention in environments that are safe and low on sensory input. In other words, you don't take it and go to a crowded singles bar or even a rock and roll concert. I mean, if you have to combine psychedelics with rock and roll, do it with low doses. It's the way to do it. It isn't always going to be ecstatic, but it's almost always guaranteed to be educational. There's no way you can seal yourself off from shock, because shock may be what you need. But you can, attention to it, I mean fasting, going into it, cleaning yourself up, creating a safe space, not going to it if you've just been highly agitated by some emotional upheaval in your life, and then take a long time to integrate it and think about it. It's basically, in the best sense of the word, a religious activity, and and the intellect or whatever it is that lies behind it is very sensitive to your needs and your limits, and unless you approach it with a cavalier attitude, it will usually be very gentle with you. Now, this fear of death thing, though, is a hard thing to come to terms with, because we are going to die. It's scripted into the human experience. Culturally, there's a great deal of anxiety around this, and basically, I think what one has to do is simply ride it out in terms of advice as to what you do once you are in the middle of an unpleasant revelation. You can sing your way through that. You can smoke cannabis to shake up the pieces on the board, and you can just wait and put up with it. The real issue, you see, around fear on psychedelics is a surrender issue. The ego plays a trick on you, because the ego begins to dissolve under the influence of the psychedelic, and the ego sends you the message, you are dying. This is its last, most desperate ploy to halt what is happening, because the ego is dying, and to the degree that you identify with the ego, you'll be driven into a state of panic. That joke about the Lone Ranger and Tonto are surrounded by Indians, and the Lone Ranger says, well, it looks like the end of the trail, partner, and Tonto says, it looks like the end of the trail for us, partner, and Tonto says, what mean us, pale face? point and wish it luck, and it is, in fact, dissolved. And you can sing. It will respond to being sung to. I am terrified of psychedelics. I never take them without a sense of sickening dread pervading me. Because I figure, I stand up in front of people and preach this stuff, and if it wants to get me, it will really get me good. And what I say to it when I take it, I say, I am surrendering myself to you completely. Do what you will with me. Please don't hurt me. And if you must kill me, please do it quickly. But I know people who have tried to order it around, heavy male dominator types who want to beat information out of it. And my God, they have bad trips so terrifying that they never come back to it again, because if it decides to turn on you, it has resources that would make your hair stand on end. So easy does it, gently, reverently, and with a great deal of attention.
I have some mushrooms that are given to me fresh, sealed, 7 years ago on my birthday. I still have them. Would they still be any good?
Did you keep them in a dark, cold place?
For 2 years, and then I moved on to a boat, and but they're in a dark place.
Well, the way to tell is if the seal was so good that they are still cracker dry as a fresh saltine cracker, they're probably all right. But what tends to happen with mushrooms under the best sealing conditions is they resorb water. And if it's rubbery at all, or even bendable, then it's probably degraded and it's not any good anymore. Another thing, let me say before I leave this, if you're really serious about taking this into your life and you really want insurance against unpleasant experiences, then learn to grow them. This catapults you into a whole different category of relationship to it, because it gives special privileges to growers. It's like premier class on United Airlines or something. You get to board first, and you get a wider seat and a better meal and a good movie. So, and if you can grow it, it will teach you the qualities that you must have to take it, which are attention to detail, sensitivity to incremental changes, scheduling, cleanliness, so forth and so on, and will reform your character sufficiently that you can then probably take it without fear. Yes, this lady over here. To my children about this? I have an 11-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. I talk to them exactly the way I talk to you about it. I say there are good drugs and bad drugs. There's no such thing as the drug problem or the drug issue. Part of the way the establishment has muddied the water is by impoverishing our language about these things. Name a drug and I'll tell you what I think about it and how you should relate to it. I've seen people destroy themselves on cocaine, heroin, alcohol. I've seen people get nutty behind tobacco, religion, fascist politics, fundamentalism. And I say, if you're going to take a drug, and if you want to take a drug, talk to me about it. If you want me to take it with you, and I think it's a worthwhile drug, I will. If I don't think it's a worthwhile drug, I will tell you why. But it will be a real reason, and you will find out that I'm not putting you on, and I haven't had any problem. I think we infantilize not only our children, but ourselves on this issue. Some drugs are bad, some drugs are good, some drugs are trivial, and then there are styles of taking drugs. The way I think psychedelics should be taken is it's a kind of paradox. rarely and at high doses, so that you never are comfortable. I'm not peddling comfort here. I'm peddling revelation. So you must take what are called heroic doses, more than you want to take. That's the correct dose, and less frequently than you want to take it. That's the correct timing. And then each time it will blow your mind to shreds and positively feed into the rest of your life. There is the people who think people who take psychedelics are into escape, don't know what they're talking about. I mean, escape into what, for crying out loud? I mean, the heavy narcosis is going on in front of the boob tube and imbibing, the daily newspaper and that kind of thing. So it's basically you've got to level with your kids, ever more so now because lying has become official policy. I mean, I can't believe the crap I see on television in these anti-drug ads. Marijuana is the gateway drug to hard drugs. Tobacco and alcohol are the gateway drugs to hard drugs. Don't let anybody kid you. And so forth and so on. So it's a matter of informing ourselves and then informing our children and then teaching them how to do these things. It's a lot like sexuality. When nobody mentioned it, you learned in the gutter, and that usually meant that you got your girlfriend pregnant at age 19 and had a shotgun marriage and lived a life of agony and repression in the service of phony social values from that point on. We have to educate ourselves. Our sexuality, our psychedelic psychology, all the rest of it. You and I, not our children, have been tremendously infantilized by our government. I mean, think about the "Just Say No" slogan. What that means is, don't think about it, don't inform yourself, just say no. Behave, in other words, like an idiot. This is not serviceable. And, pardon me? Yeah, why ask why? The empowering of institutional ignorance. It's unconscionable. This is the kind of art. These people make such a strong argument for the legal regulation of advertising that they would do well to step back. They may find themselves in a situation that they find very uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean, freedom of speech is not freedom to subvert the human enterprise. Freedom of speech is freedom to advocate and to argue and to respond to arguments, but not to stack the deck against truth and clear thinking and relative truth.
You are running for presidency.
No. If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve.